So we're digging into proportions in this video, and unfortunately I did not give myself a starting spot on this one. So talking about proportions in general, a proportion is a fraction equaling another fraction, right? It's two ratios set equal to each other. So we call that being in proportion when you have this ratio equaling this ratio. Okay, so let's actually get into some mathematics. I'm a huge fan of labeling my ratios as I make them. So we expect maps to be in proportion to the actual places they represent. The distance between Lafayette and Vincennes is 160 miles. It is represented by 6 inches on your map. If the distance between Lafayette and Fort Wayne is represented by 4.5 inches on the same map, how far apart are they in real life? Now, when I read a story problem, my first thing that I want to do is kind of think about what we're talking about. Now, we're doing a comparison here, and a comparison basically is a proportion. So we're comparing Lafayette to Vincennes compared Lafayette to Fort Wayne, right? These are the two pieces. So when I'm thinking about my proportion, my left ratio is all about Lafayette to Vincennes, my right ratio is all about Lafayette to Fort Wayne. And I'm also talking about inches compared to miles. All right, so I've got my information here, and then I said, you know what? Now let's go back and let's reread so we get the numbers in the correct position. So Lafayette to Vincennes is 160 miles. Okay, so this is Lafayette to Vincennes. Miles goes on the bottom. It's represented by 6 inches on the map. Inches is 6. Lafayette and Fort Wayne is 4.5 inches. Lafayette, Fort Wayne, inches go on top. How far apart are they in real life? So I like to do the labels on the outside of my proportion because then I know that I'm setting things up consistently. We cross multiply. So I need some more space here. So when I cross multiply, I get 6x equals 720, right? X times 6 is 6x. 160 times 4.5 is 720. I divide both sides by 6 because then these cancel out. And I am left with 120 miles from Lafayette to Fort Wayne. Number 1. On your map, the distance between Evansville and Muncie is 8.75 inches. How many miles is it from Evansville to Muncie if it's 4.5 inches between Lafayette and Fort Wayne and 120 miles in real life? Round to the nearest mile. So now we're talking Evansville to Muncie. We're still talking about Lafayette to Fort Wayne. We're still talking about inches and miles. All right, so let's fill in what we know. Evansville to Muncie is 8.75 inches. How many miles is it? I don't know. There's my unknown value, x. 4.5 inches Lafayette to Fort Wayne, 120 miles. Cross multiply, 4.5x equals 8.75 times 120 is 1050. Divide both sides by 4.5. Those cancel out because 4.5 divided by 4.5 is 1. And I end up with 233 miles. I rounded it there because it said round to the nearest mile. So 233 miles. A couple ordered 70 ounces of pâté for their engagement party of 45 people. The pâté was such a hit that they decided to serve it again at their wedding. How many ounces will they need for 315 people? Okay, so we're talking about the engagement, we're talking about the wedding. We're comparing people, and we're talking about pâté. And I think there's like some extra things on there. Okay, so now I can fill in. And every proportion can be set up like 8 different ways, 12 different ways, a bunch of different ways. It's all about being consistent. So if you set yours up a different way, check your cross multiplication. If your cross multiplication is the same as mine, then you're golden. So 70 ounces of pâté for their engagement party of 45 people. That was the engagement. We don't know. We have 315 people at the wedding, but we don't know how much pâté we need. So we can cross multiply. 45x equals 22,050. We divide both sides by 45. And we are going to need 490 ounces. That seems like a lot. But I've never had it, so I don't have any idea. Number 4. House is assessed at $73,000, has an annual property tax of $1,600. How much property tax would the owner of a house in the same neighborhood expect to pay if his house was assessed at $87.5, round to the nearest dollar? All right, so we're talking about house number 1 and we're talking about house number 2. We're talking about the price of the house and we're talking about property tax. Right? And I like to label. This is just kind of, you don't have to label, but this is kind of how to do it. House number 1 is assessed at $73,000 with taxes of $1,600. House number 2 is assessed at $87.5 and we're trying to figure out the taxes. So again, we cross multiply. When you round to the nearest dollar, you should get $1,918, rounded to the nearest dollar. 1 acre of land has 30,000 individual plants of corn. That's a lot of corn. How many plants would grow on a 17-acre farm? Well, if we think about this, so we're talking acres to corn. 1 acre is 30,000 things of corn, plants of corn. 17 acres is how many plants of corn? Cross multiply. This one's nice. You just end up with X equals 510,000 plants of corn. But I highly recommend you do some labeling. Notice I didn't put any labels on the top on this one, but I still labeled on the sides to make sure that everything got in the correct place. Larry is creating a mural from a photograph he took while on vacation. He has decided that every 0.5 inch of the photo will equal 4 inches in the mural. If the photograph is cropped to be 7 inches wide, how wide will the mural be? Okay, so I'm going to say we are comparing the mural and the photo. And then they talk about a scale, and then they talk about the width. So they talk about the scale. Every 0.5 on the photo will be 4 inches in the mural. So 0.5 in the photo is 4 inches in the mural. That's the scale. And then it said if the photograph is 7 inches wide, photo is 7 inches wide, how wide will the mural be? We cross multiply. 0.5x is 28. When you divide by 0.5, that's the same as multiplying by 2, and we get 56 inches. Amy's taking 15 credit hours at Ivy Tech this summer and paid $1997.25 for tuition. She's considering taking 11 credit hours this summer. What will her tuition be? We're talking about credit hours. We're talking about money. So this semester, 15 credits is $1997.25. 11 credits would be how much? Cross multiply, divide. It doesn't say round to anything, so because it's money, we're just going to go to the nearest penny. Oops, that's not the right number. $14.64.65. And the last problem, a 35-pound child receives 525 milligrams of antibiotics. If the dose is to remain proportional to body weight, how many milligrams of antibiotics should be prescribed to a child who weighs 68 pounds? So we're talking pounds compared to milligrams. 35 pounds gets 525. 68 pounds gets how many? We cross multiply, we divide. A 68-pound child should get 1,020 milligrams. The key to proportions is the cross multiply, or the setup, excuse me. I mean, cross multiplying is how you solve it, but the key is setting up consistently. All pounds on the top, all milligrams on the bottom. If you set them up consistently, your cross multiplying and dividing will be flawless.